Well, good morning, everybody. It's me, Mitch. Why is it that we keep failing? Why is it that we're powerless? No matter how smart we are, no matter how much logic we have, we're powerless to stay the course when we know better. I keep talking about addiction till I'm blue in the face, and you probably get tired of listening, but it is the reason why we have no self-control, no willpower, are helpless when our addictions and cravings get triggered. I've learned why that is, and that's been the hardest message that I've had to portray is why are we helpless? And even if we know why we're helpless, can we even do anything about it? And that's what's frustrating. I think it's important that we do understand what an addiction is, how insidious it is, and how it just makes us do things we consciously don't want to do. I think it's important to understand the difference between what a habit is and what an addiction is, how the two interrelate, how one facilitates the other. I think it's important to understand the triggers and why some of the things that we do are counterproductive. And while we may think they're helping, only make things worse and only trigger things. And I wanted to talk today about the single biggest one of those things that cause triggers that on its face would seem to be something that would just be so helpful. And that's where we get sucked in, friends. That's where we get sucked in. And even though I've said it before, I'm going to say it again and devote this entire video to it. And that is one of the things that I learned would derail me faster than anything. And you'll learn it too if you stop to notice the timing of when you do this thing and then how soon after your diet fails, your addictions are triggered, you're helpless, and down the rabbit hole you go until you get disgusted with yourself again and decide to start over. And isn't that the story of most of our lives? And that one thing that I'm talking about is trying to find versions of foods that you consider necessary to have in your life in order to be happy. And if only you think you could find a version of that food which has low carb or low calorie or whatever particular path you're on, then you could solve your problem because you know you can't live without that particular food. Don't do it. I use pizza as an example, but it can be anything that you're addicted to, or any bad habit that you have eating any of those foods will trigger your addictions. And the difference, and this is important, the difference between an addiction and a habit. An addiction is controlled by your subconscious mind. It affects your thinking. It actually changes your brain operation, turns off your frontal lobe, takes over, and gets what it wants. An addiction comes to us from our subconscious or our animal brains that do the things they think they need to do without conscious thought. A habit, on the other hand, is more superficial. It's an association. Things that you get familiar with, things you get comfortable with. I have the habit of always putting on my right shoe before my left shoe. I don't think about it. Think about when you take a shower, the routine that you go through, what you wash first and what you wash last. That's a habit. We have thousands of different habits that we develop, and they're much easier to break than addictions. It's often said, and in my experience, that if you go a couple, 3 weeks, maybe a month, of consciously trying to override a habit, it won't be a habit anymore. If you change a routine in less than a month, your new routine, it replaces your old routine. And that's where the problem is. If any of your routines, of which eating is probably the one you do most, other than smoking or drinking or taking drugs, those are addictions that have manifested themselves and attached themselves to a habit that allows the behavior that feeds that particular addiction. You want to quit smoking, for example, and whenever you sit down with a cup of coffee, you automatically grab a cigarette. That's a habit. If you want an aid in quitting smoking, try to break that habit. And sometimes that even takes giving up coffee. If you go to a movie theater and you find yourself with a gallon bucket of popcorn in your hand, that's a habit. It's associated. When you go to a movie, you have popcorn. That's just the way it is. If you're trying to diet, it's not the movie that's making you fat, it's the popcorn. You may have to give up movies for a while until you break the association of that habit with the substance you're addicted to. Sometimes we have to temporarily change a behavior so that we don't fall prey to the association of that behavior with some other behavior we're trying to stop. And this is why I say so passionately that if your new lifestyle doesn't allow for you to have pizza, doesn't allow for you to have cheesecake, you can't keep doing the things that associate with the act of eating pizza or eating cheesecake. And here's the key: even if that pizza or that cheesecake is not hurting you from your diet standpoint, even if it has no carbs, no calories, you are perpetuating the act of eating pizza. And your animal mind, your subconscious mind, is much smarter than that. And it sees that action, even consciously, though it may seem like you know you're not hurting yourself, it says, no, I'm not falling for that. I'm addicted to pizza, because of what pizza has in it. And this thing that you're giving me is not doing the trick. And that's when its power takes over. You stop rational thinking and you find yourself eating pizza. The point I'm trying to make is you have to eliminate pizza from your life in all forms: visual, smell, imitation, low carb. If you want to change what you're going to eat in the future, it can't include pizza because you are addicted to what's in pizza, and the habit of eating pizza in any form will trigger that addiction, and then it will be taken out of your control. And this is why people fall off the wagon so easily. And it's so obvious. And it was one of the last things that I discovered in fixing my addiction problems, which, even though I'm still addicted to these foods, I have no habits that cause me to crave them anymore. And you can solve your addiction problem by doing the things that eliminate your cravings. And your cravings are a strong signal from your subconscious mind saying, you're not fooling me, and I'm going to get you. And we're powerless to fight these cravings. We may fight them off today or tomorrow, but if they don't go away, we're sunk or we're miserable. And that's just a sad fact. I think that this point of the series of events that happens from an initial in-your-face reminder of the foods that you can't eat and are bad for you, to the recognition of, do I have any habits that put me in a position to be reminded of these foods, to the actual practice of trying to change those habits, like not going to the movie so you don't eat the popcorn, or giving up the cup of coffee so you don't smoke the cigarette for a month or so, until you maybe can break that habit so you can go to the movie or have the coffee without it reminding you so strongly of the bad associated behavior. Or if you're a drug addict, try to steer away from the neighborhood corner where the drug dealer is when you take your daily walk. These are obvious things that we need to do. But I think as important as identifying those things you're addicted to is identifying what habits you have that put you in a position to be triggered by these addictions you have, and fix that first. And one of the major things about food addiction is the habit of thinking it's okay to make the imitation versions of that food is the first thing you have to break. So if you want to cure the cravings for pizza, which is an addiction, stop making any kind of pizza. Don't go into pizza restaurants. Don't watch pizza commercials on TV. Don't go out and eat with other people eating pizza in front of you. Eliminate the sight, the smell, and the environment of pizza from your life for at least 30 days until the triggers and the cravings subside. Then, like anything else that you've eliminated, you might try adding it back in and saying to yourself, I wonder if looking at a picture of pizza will trigger my cravings like it used to. And you'll find that this isn't a permanent thing you have to do, but you have to let the habit go. I know this is true because everything that I was addicted to, I can be surrounded by now and it doesn't bother me. But by isolating myself from the triggers, from the sights, sounds, and smells of these things for enough time to disassociate them from behaviors and habits, I was finally allowed the peace of not being plagued by the addictions anymore. But it's not something you can just do and never be wary of again. It's insidious. You got to watch out for it. You have to structure your life to stay away from those things that you know have the strongest pull, because they will be there. We can't cure addictions, and there's certain diseases we can't cure, but we can put them in remission. And that's okay. If it's the best we can do, it's certainly better than what we've been doing. I hope this message has resonated with you. It's certainly food for thought. Seriously think, contemplate about what are your biggest traps, and we're all different. What are your biggest downfalls? What are the most addictive foods that you have the hardest time resisting? Think about the situations. Think about where you are, when you get these cravings, what you're doing. Is it when you're watching TV, when you're watching a movie at 8 o'clock at night? Is that when the worst cravings come over you that you always succumb to? Identify what the triggers are. They're generally wrapped up in a habit somewhere. Try to change those habits at least for 30 to 60 days if you can. And that's the first step in identifying those things that are harming you the most. So with that, I'm going to say, take the rest of the day off, my friends, and eat meat.